Imagine the dead of night over a freezing Eastern European city. The sirens have been screaming for 20 minutes, a sound that chills the blood and forces families to huddle in pitch-black basements. Then comes the sound. It is not the roar of a jet engine, nor the whistle of a falling bomb. It sounds like a cheap lawnmower, a flying moped. It is the unmistakable, terrifying, rattling buzz of a Russian Shopit attack drone, creeping through the sky carrying dozens of pounds of high explosives designed to obliterate an apartment complex, a power grid, or a hospital. For years, the only way to stop this creeping death was a mathematical nightmare. You wait for the drone to cross into the sights of an American-made Patriot missile battery, a marvel of modern engineering, and you pull the trigger. A streak of fire lights up the sky, the drone is vaporized, and the people below are safe. But in the cold, hard light of day, the terrifying reality of that interception sets in. The drone that Russia launched cost them roughly $35,000 to build. The Patriot missile that Ukraine just fired to shoot it down cost the American taxpayer and the Ukrainian defenders $4 million. $4 million to destroy $35,000. It does not take a five-star general or a Wall Street hedge fund manager to realize that this is not a sustainable way to fight a war. This is a strategy of sheer financial exhaustion. Vladimir Putin knows this. He has been banking on the idea that he can simply bleed Ukraine and its Western allies dry, forcing them to fire gold-plated missiles at cheap plastic and fiberglass drones until the money runs out and the skies are left completely defenseless. But as quiet as a mouse, slipping completely under the radar of the global press, an absolutely devastating counterpunch has just been delivered, and it did not come from the Pentagon. It did not come from NATO headquarters in Brussels. It came from an island nation that understands the threat of imperial aggression better than almost anyone. Japan has just unleashed a piece of technology so innovative, so cheap, and so lethal that it is currently rendering Vladimir Putin's entire strategy of aerial terror completely and utterly powerless. What Japan just did for the Ukrainian war effort is nothing short of insane. They have delivered a catastrophic blow to the Russian military apparatus without a single Japanese soldier firing a single shot. They did not need to. What Tokyo has delivered is the product of an underground high-tech alliance with Ukraine that the Kremlin never saw coming, and one that is fundamentally rewriting the rules of 21st century warfare. To understand the magnitude of this breakthrough, you have to look at the skies over Ukraine today. They are polluted with larger swarms of these Iranian-designed, Russian-built Shahed drones than at any point in history. Russia is no longer firing 10s or 20s, they are firing thousands. In response to this existential threat, an unprecedented partnership has emerged from the shadows. On one side, you have Terra Drone Corporation. Founded about a decade ago, this is one of the most prestigious, rapidly growing tech titans in Japan. We are talking about a massive enterprise with 650 employees, a highly coveted listing on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, and a corporate culture built on absolute precision and technological dominance. Terra Drone is a company that usually makes its money mapping terrain, inspecting infrastructure, and building alliances all over the globe. But recently, they announced their entry into the defense sector, realizing that the technology they were building for peace could be the exact thing required to protect democracies from tyranny. On the other side of this partnership is a company that could not possibly be more different. Deep inside the frontline city of Kharkiv, a city that has been hammered by Russian artillery, bombed, besieged, and battered since the very first hour of the invasion, exists a company called Amazing Drones, where Terra Drone was born in the gleaming, safe, hyper-modern skyscrapers of Tokyo with a desire to maximize corporate profit. Amazing Drones was forged in the literal fires of a brutal war of survival. Just 3 years ago, this was not a company. It was a desperate volunteer initiative. It was a group of engineers, students, and patriots working in unheated garages, soldering wires together while the ground shook from incoming cruise missiles. But under the pressure of war, coal turns into diamonds. Amazing Drones survived. They adapted. They grew into a full-fledged, battle-hardened technology firm. They became a crucial pillar of the Brave One Defense Cluster, a radical initiative set up by the Ukrainian government to cut through bureaucratic red tape and force their drone manufacturers to think big, think fast, and invent the exact weapons Ukraine needs to survive the night. When the sleek, heavily funded Japanese executives from Terra Drone met with the battle-scarred, brilliant Ukrainian engineers from Amazing Drones at a defense exhibition, a spark was ignited. Maxim Klemenko, the founder of Amazing Drones, knew exactly what the battlefield demanded. Toro Tokushige, the founder of Terra Drone, knew exactly how to engineer it, fund it, and perfect it. From this unprecedented alliance, a new weapon was born. A piece of technology so perfectly designed for this specific conflict that it is currently giving Russian commanders sleepless nights. It is called the Terra A1, and the Terra A1 is an absolute apex predator in the sky. It is an interceptor drone designed from the ground up to solve every single problem that Ukraine and by extension the United States has with long-range, cheap attack drones. Let us break down exactly what makes this machine such a terrifying prospect for the Russian military. The Terra A1 is a hunter killer. It boasts a top speed of 300 kilometers per hour, which translates to roughly 186 miles per hour. It has an operational range of up to 35 kilometers, or a little over 20 miles. These numbers might not sound like much compared to a supersonic fighter jet, but in the realm of drone-on-drone warfare, they are absolutely game-changing. The Russian Terra Drone, the weapon terrorizing Ukrainian cities, is slow. It lumbers through the sky like a flying tractor. The Terra A1, by contrast, is a bullet. It offers the blistering speed and extensive range required to not just meet a Terra drone, but to actively hunt it down. Furthermore, this is not a dumb missile. The Terra A1 covers the entire complex mission cycle for an interception. It launches, it conducts initial surveillance to scan the airspace, it detects the incoming target using advanced optics and sensors, it locks on, and it executes the interception. It does all of this within a single highly efficient 15-minute flight window. Do not underestimate the critical importance of that 186 mile/hour top speed. What the Terra A1 might lack in raw, explosive firepower, because it does not need to carry a massive heavy warhead like an offensive strike drone. It more than makes up for in pure unadulterated kinetic velocity. It is a staggering 100 kilometers, or 62 miles per hour faster than Russia's typical Shahed. This means the Terra A1 does not just fly up, loiter in the sky, and hope a Russian drone happens to bump into it. It is an active hunter. When a Shahed is detected on radar, the Terra A1 is launched. It closes the distance with terrifying speed. It engages the Russian drone in an inescapable death dance in the night sky. The Shahed cannot outrun it. It cannot outmaneuver it. The Terra A1 stalks the Russian contraption, lines it up, and then slams into it, sending Putin's weapon hurtling back to the earth in a fireball of shattered fiberglass and burning fuel. But as spectacular as a high-speed drone chase sounds, the reality of the Terra A1 is far colder, far more calculated, and far deadlier. These dramatic chases will actually be quite rare because the Terra A1 is a ghost. Unlike the incredibly loud gas-powered engines of the Russian Shaheds that announce their arrival from miles away, the Terra A1 utilizes a highly advanced electric propulsion system. It emits virtually zero noise. It produces practically no heat signature. To the operators sitting at radar consoles back in Russia, or the cameras mounted on the Shahed itself, the Terra A1 simply does not exist. It is a stealth interceptor. In the vast majority of combat scenarios, the only time the Russian military will know a Terra A1 is in the sky is the exact microsecond before their own drone explodes into a million pieces. The Terra A1 will silently loiter in the dark, spot its lumbering noisy prey, strike with lethal precision, and vanish. Perhaps the most astonishing feature of this Japanese-Ukrainian marvel is its brain. The Terra A1 is highly intelligent. It does not require a pilot sitting in a bunker with a joystick flying it every second of the way. It can operate completely independently of a human operator. In the chaotic, electronic warfare-heavy environment of Ukraine, where communication signals are constantly jammed and severed by Russian tech, an autonomous drone is the holy grail. The Terra A1 can blow Russian Shahed out of the sky without requiring extensive months-long training for the troops on the ground. A Ukrainian soldier can simply deploy it, give it the parameters, and let the machine do the killing. And now we arrive at the most crucial detail of this entire narrative, the single piece of data that turns this technological marvel into a geopolitical earthquake. We talked earlier about the $4 million American Patriot missile being used to shoot down a $35,000 Russian drone. It is a financial hemorrhage. The Terra A1, complete with its stealth electric motors, its autonomous targeting brain, and its 186 mile/hour top speed, costs exactly $2,000 to build. $2,000. Let that sink in for a moment. For the price of a mid-range laptop computer or a beat-up used car, Ukraine can now completely neutralize a $35,000 Russian weapon. The economics of exhaustion have just been violently flipped on their head. Stick with this thought because the ramifications of this price tag are about to reshape not just the war in Europe, but the defense strategies of the United States and its allies around the world. Right now, this partnership is fresh. The ink on the contracts is barely dry, and the project is in the critical early stages of scaling up. But Terra Drone, the Japanese juggernaut, is not just offering moral support. They have put massive amounts of capital where their mouth is. A $10 million initial investment has been injected directly into the production of these Terra A1 drones through one of Terra's specialized subsidiaries. And this is where the genius of international finance meets the grit of trench warfare. This $10 million is not just cash, it is cheap cash. In the global financial markets, interest rates on Japanese capital sit comfortably around a deeply manageable 2%. Meanwhile, inside the war-torn borders of Ukraine, a country fighting for its very survival, borrowing money comes with crippling interest rates, hovering around 20% or more. By leveraging Japanese capital, Amazing Drones has secured a financial lifeline of incredibly cheap money that they could never ever have accessed in their own country, and every single cent of that Japanese money is going directly into building more Terra A1s than the Russian military can possibly comprehend. At this very moment, production is artisanal, it is slow and methodical. A single highly trained Ukrainian worker can put together roughly 2 Terra A1 interceptors per day in their hidden workshops. We do not know exactly how many workers Amazing Drones currently employs, as that is a closely guarded military secret, but the processes are rapidly being streamlined. The Japanese money is pouring into the supply chain. Soon the Terra A1 will transition from being hand-built to being mass-produced on assembly lines. It is about to be manufactured at a scale so massive that it will instantly become the most vital, cost-effective tool in the entire Ukrainian arsenal for defending their power grids, their hospitals, and their children from the relentless scourge of Putin's Shahhead swarms. But building factories in Ukraine is a deadly proposition. You cannot simply build a massive, sprawling manufacturing plant like you would in Detroit or Tokyo. Traditional factories are massive targets. Russian satellites look for them, and Russian cruise missiles destroy them. Toru Tokushige, the founder of Terra Drone, deeply understands this brutal reality. He noted that Ukrainian engineers have developed a unique, blood-earned practical know-how when it comes to extreme manufacturing. They have learned how to completely decentralize production. They break the assembly process down, spreading it across dozens of small hidden locations, basements, abandoned garages, underground bunkers, operating under the constant suffocating threat of aerial bombardment. Tokushige stated publicly that Terra Drone is studying and adopting this exact approach, and in that seemingly simple corporate statement lies a profound revelation. This is not charity. This is not a one-way street where the rich Japanese company saves the poor Ukrainian startup. Japan is getting something incredibly valuable in return. Ukraine is getting the weapons it needs to survive today, but Japan is acquiring combat-tested, forged-in-fire knowledge of decentralized wartime manufacturing. This is a skill set that is desperately needed in a world that is increasingly plunging into global chaos. Japan is watching the horizon. They are watching the aggressive posturing of China in the Indo-Pacific. They are watching the daily threats against Taiwan. Terra Drone is already considering launching the mass production of these Ukrainian-designed drones directly on Japanese soil. By building them in Japan, they serve a dual purpose. They can be shipped back to Ukraine in massive numbers to annihilate Russian forces, and they can be stockpiled by the Japanese self-defense forces to guard against any potential aggression in their own backyard. What we are witnessing here is a localized partnership between two tech companies evolving rapidly into a massive strategic military alliance between two incredibly powerful nations. The signs of this shifting world order have been brewing for a while. Japan has been a rock-solid supporter of Ukraine since the tanks first rolled across the border. Historically, due to Japan's post-World War II pacifist constitution, their support has leaned heavily on the humanitarian and financial side. In February alone, Japan pledged $38 million to help Ukraine repair cultural sites that Russian artillery had ground to dust. By April 1st, an earth-shattering $1.3 billion had been pledged to Ukraine under the Japanese Peace in Ukraine project. But it is moving far beyond just sending money for rebuilding. Also in February, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization announced the conclusion of major grant agreements with 47 different Japanese tech and manufacturing companies. These companies are now actively testing their business models, their robotics, and their technologies inside the live combat laboratory of Ukraine. These are the undeniable signs of a burgeoning, formidable alliance. The Terra A1 is just the tip of the spear. By March, the highest levels of the governments in both Kiev and Tokyo began drafting an intergovernmental partnership specifically designed to facilitate the frictionless transfer of classified defense equipment and cutting-edge military technologies. The ultimate goal is to fuse the manufacturing might of Japan with the battle-tested innovation of Ukraine, leading to localization projects focused entirely on next-generation weapons. Japan is already actively looking into purchasing heavy Ukrainian offensive attack drones. These are the same long-range drones that Ukraine is currently using to fly hundreds of miles deep into Russian territory, to blow up oil refineries and military airfields. For Japan, acquiring this technology is a vital deterrent. If tensions finally boil over and erupt into open warfare in the Indo-Pacific region, Japan wants Ukrainian-style attack drones ready to launch. For Ukraine, forging these deep ties with the world's third-largest economy guarantees a perpetual, uninterrupted influx of the two things they need most: cash and weapons. Ukraine is rapidly transforming from a victim of imperial aggression into a major, highly influential player in the global geopolitical arena. And the supreme bitter irony of all of this is that absolutely none of it would be happening if Vladimir Putin had not made the incredibly foolish, hubristic decision over 4 years ago to launch a full-scale invasion. He believed he was attacking a weak, fractured country that would crumble and surrender in 3 days. Instead, Ukraine stood its ground. They fought like lions. They have been bleeding the Russian army dry for over 4 years. By trying to destroy Ukraine, Putin has inadvertently acted as the catalyst for its rise. He has single-handedly forced Ukraine to develop ties, alliances, and military technology partnerships that would never ever have existed if the Russian army had just stayed on their side of the border. We will circle back to the absolute disaster this means for Russia on the global stage shortly, but we must first look at the immediate, terrifying reality Russia faces on the battlefield because of the Terra A1. To truly comprehend why the Terra A1 is a holy grail for Ukraine, you have to look at the staggering numbers of the air war. Since Russia acquired the Shahed drone technology from the Iranian regime, they have engaged in total, relentless, psychological, and economic warfare. They are not just targeting military bases, they are launching vast swarms of these explosive drones at civilian infrastructure, aiming to plunge millions of people into the freezing dark, burning cities to the ground. The volume of fire is horrific. In the month of March alone, the Russian military fired an astonishing 6,462 drones into Ukrainian airspace. Now, Ukraine is fighting back hard. For the first time since the war began, Ukraine actually outproduced and outfired Russia, launching 7,347 of their own long-range strike drones back into Russian territory during that same month. But while Ukraine is learning to punch back, defending against the Russian swarms has remained a critical vulnerability because of the cost. As we discussed, relying on Western air defense systems is a path to bankruptcy. The Patriot missile is a miracle of engineering. When it comes to shooting down a hypersonic Russian Kinzhal ballistic missile hurtling toward a city block, the Patriot is worth every single penny of its $4 million price tag. It is vital. It is necessary. But when you use a Patriot to shoot down a flying lawnmower, you are falling into a trap. The Council on Foreign Relations has laid this mathematical crisis bare. If Ukraine only had Patriot missiles to defend themselves against the 6,462 drones Russia fired in March, and they achieved a perfect 100% interception rate, it would have cost the Ukrainian military and its Western backers an unfathomable $25.8 billion for 1 month of defense. That level of expenditure is ludicrous. It is impossible. Even if you step down to cheaper, shorter-range American air defense systems like the Coyote Interceptor, you are still looking at a cost of $125,000 for every single shot. Ukraine's most desperate challenge has not just been stopping the explosives, it has been finding a way to stop them without bankrupting the entire free world. Enter the Terra A1, the $2,000 Japanese-Ukrainian ghost. Let us run the math again, but this time using the Terra A1. Assuming a 100% interception rate against those exact same 6,462 Russian drones launched in March, the total cost to the defenders drops from $25 billion down to just $12.9 million. $12 million is not pocket change, but in the realm of global military spending, it is a rounding error. It is incredibly affordable. Now look at the cost on the Russian side of the ledger. If Putin's Shahed-type drones cost roughly $35,000 each to build, then launching that swarm of 6,400 drones just cost the Russian economy over $226 million. Do you see what just happened? The entire dynamic of the war just flipped. Advantage Ukraine. With autonomous mass-produced weapons like the Terra A1 swarming the skies, Ukraine goes from begging Western parliaments for billions of dollars just to survive the winter, to resting easy knowing that every time Russia launches an attack, it is costing Moscow 20 times more money than it cost Kiev to swat it out of the sky. Ukraine is literally bankrupting the Russian attack strategy one $2,000 drone at a time. But the ripple effects of this technological breakthrough do not stop at the Ukrainian border. This Japanese-Ukrainian alliance gives both nations the ultimate bargaining chip when dealing with the United States of America. Right now, both Kiev and Tokyo can point a finger at the struggles the United States military is currently facing in the Middle East and say, look at what we built. We have a solution that is faster, smarter, and infinitely cheaper than anything the Pentagon is currently fielding. Make no mistake, what the United States military is currently forced to do in the Red Sea and the skies over the Middle East is incredibly inefficient and highly dangerous to the long-term readiness of the US Navy. American forces are actively engaging the exact same Iranian Shahed technology that Russia is using. On March 20th, United 24 Media published reports from highly experienced Ukrainian drone specialists who had been deployed to the Middle East to consult on countering the Iranian drone threat. What these battle-hardened Ukrainians witnessed shocked them. They watched American forces fire up to 8 highly advanced Patriot interceptor missiles to guarantee the destruction of a single cheap incoming aerial threat. 8 missiles. $32 million to destroy a $35,000 target. In naval engagements, it is even worse. The US Navy has been forced to fire SM-6 interceptor missiles from their billion-dollar destroyers. An SM-6 missile costs American taxpayers over $6 million. They are firing $6 million missiles to swat down $70,000 Iranian drones targeting commercial shipping lanes. This approach is completely unsustainable. Even with the US military's practically bottomless budget, you cannot win a war of attrition when the financial kill ratio is skewed thousands of % against you. What Japan and Ukraine have just birthed into existence, a mass-producible, autonomous, $2,000 stealth interceptor, is exactly what the United States Navy and Army desperately need to secure their own forces globally. This partnership positions both Ukraine and Japan not just as beneficiaries of American protection, but as vital technological saviors who can offer the US a way out of the asymmetric warfare trap. It must be noted that the concept of using drones to hunt other drones is not entirely new. The Ukrainians, out of sheer necessity, have been the pioneers of this tactic. They have been flying first-person view interceptor drones for months, and they have proven terrifyingly effective. Major news outlets like Pravda reported early in the year that primitive hand-flown interceptor drones were already responsible for taking down 70% of the Shahed attack drones that Moscow fired at the capital city of Kiev during a single month. Across the entire country, even these early makeshift interceptors were destroying 30% of all incoming Russian drones. Oleksandr Syrsky, the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces, publicly highlighted the absolute necessity of these units. He stated that despite terrible winter weather and a critical shortage of traditional Western anti-air ammunition, the drone interceptor units held the line. In a single month, Ukrainian interceptor drone operators flew over 6,300 combat sorties, successfully hunting and destroying over 1,500 Russian UAVs of various types. And remember, those incredible numbers were achieved using first-generation technology, men and women sitting in trenches wearing VR goggles, manually chasing down targets. The National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine has stated that internal production of interceptor drones is set to increase 8-fold. Currently, more than 20 different Ukrainian defense startups are racing to perfect this technology, achieving interception success rates exceeding 60%. But everything we have seen so far in the skies of Ukraine is merely the prototype phase. The hand-flown, noisy, operator-dependent drones were the first draft of history. The Japanese-backed Terra A1 is the final perfected draft. It is the next evolution of warfare. It is blindingly fast. It is completely autonomous. It is invisible to radar and thermal optics. It is unbelievably cheap. And because it is backed by the vast wealth and engineering discipline of a Japanese tech giant, it is immune to the supply chain collapses that plague smaller companies. The Terra A1 will soon become the foundation of a massive multi-layered impenetrable air defense shield over Ukraine. The cheap $2,000 Terra drones will swarm the skies to annihilate the cheap Russian Shaheds at close range, freeing up the $1 million American Patriot missiles to focus entirely on destroying incoming Russian hypersonic ballistic missiles. It is a perfect, impenetrable synergy. When you pull back from the tactical details of drone warfare and look at the massive geopolitical picture, the truth becomes undeniable. The Terra Drone partnership is the ultimate proof that Vladimir Putin's grand strategy has collapsed in spectacular historical fashion. When Putin ordered his tanks toward Kiev under the guise of a special military operation, his stated goal was the demilitarization and total subjugation of Ukraine. He wanted to wipe the nation off the map, isolate it from the West, and prove the dominance of the Russian military. Instead, after years of grueling, catastrophic fighting, Putin has achieved the exact diametric opposite. His brutal war of conquest has served as the anvil upon which a new, incredibly lethal Ukrainian state has been forged. By trying to demilitarize Ukraine, Putin accidentally transformed them into the world's foremost, most innovative superpower in the realm of unmanned, asymmetric warfare. The alliance between Tokyo and Kiev is merely one thread in a massive web of global influence Ukraine is currently spinning. Both Japan and Ukraine realize that they need each other. They are forming permanent high-level defense ties that simply would never have been imaginable before Russian boots crossed the border. Japan would never have broken its decades of pacifist tradition to co-develop lethal weapons if Putin hadn't shattered the illusion of global peace. And this is happening everywhere. In the Middle East, a region where Russia used to project massive power and influence, nations are now turning their backs on Moscow and looking to Kiev. Ukraine has recently signed highly classified, decade-long defense cooperation deals with several incredibly wealthy Gulf states. Nations like Saudi Arabia and Qatar are terrified of the exact same Iranian-designed Shahed drones that are bombing Ukraine. They know that the only people on Earth who truly know how to defeat these drones are the Ukrainians. These wealthy Gulf nations, who historically relied entirely on the United States for their defense, are now pouring money into Ukrainian military tech sectors. President Volodymyr Zelensky has openly declared that Ukraine is ready and willing to share its marine drone technology, the same technology that effectively sank half the Russian Black Sea Fleet, and its new interceptor technologies, like the Terra A1, with its global partners. Ukraine is actively negotiating its accession into the European Union, a move that could be finalized as early as 2027, permanently cementing them into the Western economic and military bloc. 5 years ago, nations with advanced militaries viewed Ukraine as a corrupt post-Soviet backwater. Today, Ukraine holds the keys to the future of warfare. They possess the combat data, the software, and the bloody experience that every military on Earth, from Washington to Tokyo to Riyadh, desperately wants to acquire, and Vladimir Putin is entirely responsible for this. His arrogance elevated Ukraine onto the global stage. And worse yet for the men sitting in the Kremlin, as Ukraine's star rises, Russia's power is rotting from the inside out. Putin's global influence is weaker today than it has been at any point in the last quarter century. His allies are falling, and his economy is bleeding. Internationally, the chaotic proxy wars and shifting alliances are costing Russia dearly. Nations that once relied on Russia to maintain stability are watching the Russian military struggle to conquer towns just a few miles from their own border. But the most devastating blow to Russia's global standing is the complete collapse of its military export industry. For decades, Russia funded its empire by selling vast quantities of tanks, fighter jets, and air defense systems to countries like India, China, and nations across Africa and South America. They marketed their weapons as the tough, reliable equal to American technology. The war in Ukraine has shattered that myth permanently. The whole world has watched American-made weapons from the 1990s absolutely annihilate modern Russian armor. They have watched cheap Ukrainian drones sink flagship Russian cruisers. As a result, nobody wants to buy Russian weapons anymore. According to reports from the Moscow Times, Russia's arms exports have plummeted by a staggering 64% over the last 5 years. Part of this is because Russia desperately needs to hoard whatever weapons it can build just to sustain its massive losses in Ukraine. But the larger, more permanent reason is that their biggest customers, namely India and China, have realized that Russian weapons simply do not work against modern Western-backed tactics. As Russia's defense industry collapses, European Union countries are stepping into the void, currently selling 4 times as many weapons globally as Russia. This brings us back to the Terra A1, the silent Japanese-Ukrainian killer currently hunting in the dark skies. This drone is not just a tactical victory, it is a symbol of a shifting world order. For Ukraine, it is the holy grail of air defense. It provides a hyper-lethal, incredibly cost-effective shield that allows them to conserve their multi-million-dollar missiles while continuing to grind down the Russian war machine. Every time a $2,000 Terra A1 obliterates a $35,000 Russian drone, Ukraine wins the economic war. But for Vladimir Putin, every single intercepted shot should feel like a hammer blow to his legacy. Every silent, autonomous Terra A1 that takes flight is a glaring, unavoidable reminder that the entire industrialized, high-tech world has united against him. Japan, a technological titan from the opposite side of the planet, is firmly, decisively, and permanently on Ukraine's side. They are pouring their money, their engineering genius, and their corporate might into ensuring that the Russian military fails. The skies over Ukraine are no longer a place where Russia can strike with impunity. They have become a graveyard for Russian technology, and a testing ground for the weapons of tomorrow. The Terra A1 is out there right now, stalking its prey in silence, faster than anything Russia can throw at it. Putin built a strategy around exhausting his enemy, but he never realized that the pressure of his invasion would force his enemy to innovate, adapt, and build the exact weapon needed to render his entire arsenal completely useless. The hunters have become the hunted, and the sky belongs to the Terra A1.